Hey guys, so welcome to Walking Project Conversations today. We have Zohra Mutabanna, who is a urban policy expert. She covers a lots of topics actually, so you could actually, it's better to actually check her LinkedIn profile than relying on my words. She does a lot of stuff, and all of it is interesting if you like this urbanism space. Today, we specifically want to talk to her about the Universal Footpath Policy, which has been in the news since the BMC budget. Uh, so, in today's conversation, we dive into what this universal footpath policy and the idea is that citizens and the people in general should know what this policy is that is going to shape the pedestrian environment across the city over the next few years, how it is different from the IRC. So, let's dive into the conversation. Hi, Zora. Again, after what, 3 or 4 days after a Friday night live stream. And it's again, I mean, enjoyable to talk to you. Recently, we saw like a whole flood of articles on the Universal Footpath Policy, the circular that the BMC has launched, and with the budget, it has gained some traction. So we thought that it would be very interesting to actually see what your takes are on it, and we have our own opinions and analysis of it, and how it will shape the landscape in terms of walkability in the city, which we don't think it will do much, but that's the whole discussion this is going to be about. And I'm looking forward to what you have to share about it. And will it, uh, is it enough? Will we need something more than that? And some other things. So, yeah, hi, welcome.
Thank you, Vedant. So let me. I want to start with actually establishing the context of this footpath policy. This was preceded, as you know, by the pedestrian first policy that MCGM had released in was it uh, 2015, I believe. 2014, yes. And for that time, actually, that policy was ahead of its time in some ways. There was only Delhi and UTPEC which had developed the street design guidelines. And those street design guidelines that Delhi had made were very comprehensive, they were very graphic. They incorporated a lot of pedestrian requirements and all of that. Whereas the footpath policy at that time, the pedestrian first policy that BMC had released, was still very much focused on the footpath, and that the footpath needs to be so much that establish at least that minimum requirement that a footpath is a basic requirement and BMC is responsible for it. So that was the basic, the basic intent that it delivered. Now, cut to 2022, between 2014 and 2022, there has been a lot of progress across the country in understanding what pedestrian infrastructure really means. It is not just a matter of me having this little bit of a footpath, like it's not like a carpet, right? That you're just laying out a carpet for pedestrians and it works that way. It's not that way. A footpath is a part of a street, and so a lot of cities across the country, tier 2 cities as well, have come up with street design guidelines, street design regulations, street policies. There is Chennai, Coimbatore. In Bangalore, there is the use of tender shore guidelines that also has a tender shore contract or template established, through which a lot of new streets are coming up. And the tender shore encompasses the entire street, not just the footpath. In Bhubaneswar, they have the street design regulations, which is notified regulations, which requires all agencies, whoever is going to work on the footpath, to take approval and make sure that they are, complying with the regulations. What happens to all these measures is that, there is now a elevation in the level of discourse. So at that level now, I am going to review the universal footpath policy that the BMC has put out with that context. I'm comparing it to what the state of the practice is right now in India. I'm not even going international at this point. And that is where I want to show you where we are maybe lacking a little bit and there is scope for improvement. So this was released in 2023. This is what the guidelines have. It basically establishes a core list of guidelines in the beginning, including physical characteristics, what should a footpath surface be? What should footpath width be? External utilities obstructions, encroachment in exceptional conditions mandates minimum requirement width. So this is also explained in the guidelines that encroachment BMC acknowledges is inevitable, and in that condition, the minimum required width may also be narrowed down to 1.2 meters, but we'll go into that detail later. Potential for vehicle conflict, and therefore the segregation between the pedestrian space and the vehicle space, and continuity. Now the immediate two things that stand out here is encroachment and the potential for vehicle conflict. In the encroachment, the exceptional conditions that is laid out, which allows for the footpath to go down all the way to 1.2 meters, that leaves a lot of space for our footpaths to be squeezed in almost 80% of the city, because encroachment is everywhere, especially in suburban Mumbai. It is everywhere. A lot of the places in island cities see very wide footpaths with no encroachment. Just they're lucky that way. But most of suburban Mumbai has encroachment. So this leaves a very big gap for anything to happen then. And the second concept is the potential for vehicle conflict. Apparently, there is a fear that because there could be pedestrian vehicle conflict, and therefore there needs to be segregation either by raising the footpath and guardrails or railings. Usually both are never required. If there is a segregation by a raised footpath, railing is not required. But anyways, we'll get into that also a little bit as we go on. So now this is what the policy states. If you understand this graphic, this is basically, assume this is a shop front. It could also be a dead wall, and it could also be a compound wall. But assume it's a shop front. There would be a dead zone here or a frontage zone here where there is a space for spillover. So basically people entering, exiting, sometimes people have some awnings over it, or they have some material kept outside. And this usually happens in our cramped real estate situation. After that 0.5 meter of dead zone, there's a requirement of minimum 1.5 meter width with a minimum 2.2 meter vertical clearance. This is called, they called it the end user zone or the walking zone. And then there is a 1 meter furniture zone. Now this minimum
so this is the ideal that you are mentioning in this picture.
This is what is mentioned in the policy. This is not ideal.
Okay.
The policy allows for 1.5 meter width. This is also now contestable because it is much less than what is required by national standards. Okay.
It also, I mean, has those encroachment, like you mentioned in the previous slide, it also goes as low as 1.2 meters, right? This minimum width.
Yeah. So if what they're saying is basically the furniture zone increases and the encroachment goes up to, 2 meters instead of 1 meter, then this needs to be squeezed to 1.2 meters or something. And funnily enough, in the policy, actually, they keep referring to encroachment as parking. So in a lot of cases, I guess BMC has allowed for parking to happen on the footpath, or it cannot do away with parking that has been allocated on the footpath, or in locations where those buildings don't have their own parking, so they don't have an option but to allow for parking on the footpath. So those are the kind of situations, exceptions that they are referring to. But once you put it into a language in a policy, then it can get misinterpreted in hundreds of different.
And does the minimum does the minimum width change according to the building typology, or it's set for all types of?
Unfortunately, that it doesn't change at all, which the IRC guideline actually changes according to the land use. But in this case, there is no difference. The difference is only based on how much space is available.
Right.
Yeah.
So here, this is what the policy is allowing. They're just a comparison. policy says that 1.2 meter mein at least one wheelchair or two people can walk, but 1.2 mein two people cannot even walk side by side. So people are still walking in a like a line, queue kind of a situation. In 1.5 meter, in the diagram only they've showed that one wheelchair and one
barely
person can barely walk. So I was a little confused about this diagram. So it is not showing a pretty picture. And in 1.8 meters is what the IRC used to recommend. This is comfortable for two wheelchairs to cross each other.
Yeah.
Now this is the diagram from the new IRC guidelines. So between 2014 and 2023, the IRC 103/2022 was released, which is a revised pedestrian infrastructure guideline of the Indian Road Congress. And this is their graphic. They have a pedestrian walking zone of minimum 2 meters.
Yeah.
Frontage zone, multi-utility zone is varied. That depends on whatever the land use is or whatever is required. And 2.4 meters is a vertical clearance required. So overall, volumetrically, only our guideline has already squeezed it compared to what IRC does.
These, for the audience, we have all of these guidelines present on our website on the resources page. So walkingproject.org/resources. I'll add the link. You should be able to see in the YouTube video right now. Somewhere over here. I don't know. I'm over here somewhere. Yeah.
Now, why this is important, why this comparison is important, is because in general, the IRC code is what mandates a lot of the engineering standards for roadways across the country. And they have a lot of different codes. This one is a pedestrian infrastructure code. Basically, they have travel lane code, they have highway code, they have a lot of different signage codes. Exactly. Usually, these codes is what mandates engineering design. When the BMC makes a footpath policy that is very focused on Mumbai, it essentially supersedes what the IRC has mandated. Now, BMC does not have a roadway planning guideline. No, it does not have a vehicle planning guideline, but it has a footpath planning guideline. So what we would require is that if they're having a footpath planning guideline, when it supersedes the IRC, it is a little bit more ambitious than the IRC. Definitely. In this case, it appears like BMC's intent is to enable all the possible exceptions that they want to add in to not be able to meet the IRC guideline.
We have also seen that happen in our meetings at the BMC, because when we go to the roads department at the Worli Hub and all to complain, so we have done the SV road walk last year, 2024, and we had seen during the walk itself, certain footpaths were actually being reduced in size, like reduced by a foot or something around Malad Kandivali. So we went there and asked them, why is this happening? First of all, what is the logic behind it? They are saying, they said to us, what is the problem? We are providing the minimum widths that are prescribed in the law.
Exactly.
Even though SV road is very wide.
Correct. Now, if you ever go to BMC with the IRC code and tell them that IRC code requires a minimum of so much width, they will say, no, we are following our footpath policy, which only requires 1.2 meters. See, this is the exception condition, so only 1.2 meters required. So that is where the major problem lies. And this is where we really need to, engage with BMC and make sure that this policy guideline is not a method of creating exceptions, but really is, as it should be, a visionary guideline.
Yeah. So what is your opinion on the IRC 103/2022? Because whenever we are conducting our community walks and all, even 2012 and 2022, though it is even more liberal as compared to 2012 in terms of the widths that it makes available. So when it comes to Mumbai, it is when we measure the footpath on the road and show the people this is what the IRC says ki hona chahiye. Sometimes even ourselves are very skeptical कि ये तो बहुत ज़्यादा wide लग रहा है. So what is your perspective on that? कि how implementable it is? And I know that you have mentioned previously also कि it is the policy has to be visionary. It has to be liberal in that sense. So I don't know, but where to
implementation does get squeezed. So the thing is that within the IRC itself, they have explained how you cut down on the width if there is a limitation. So they've explained that the first thing you cut down is on the multi-utility zone or the frontage dead zone. If these widths you cannot achieve, then you can narrow them and keep at least the walking zone as a minimum width. As you can understand, so think
even
about
parking is, I think, mentioned somewhere in the 2022 IRC. Ki parking is the first thing that goes.
Yes, parking is the first thing that goes. Exactly. That entire progression is mentioned, that what should you cut down first. And also this we were discussing yesterday with some of my colleagues that we were working on a different project, that IRC had a 1.8 meter width, which, like you can see, is actually a sufficient width. But 100% in most cities, what was happening was they were just looking at this clear walking zone and translating that to mean as a total footpath.
Yeah.
Most cities were doing that. They were not planning for this frontage zone and multi-utility zone anyway. So if you are going to use that as a overall footpath width, then IRC also must have thought कि ठीक है फिर हम उसको 2 meter कर देते हैं, let's make it a 2 meter wide footpath. So at least you are giving a minimum required space. Some space is going to go 0.3 meters, 100% will go in having a street light, in having anything that you want at the edge. So my assumption is that is why they increase the width, so that 2 meters at least remain sacrosanct.
Yeah. It's sad that the BMC sticks to the absolute minimum 1.5 for the entire footpath, when it is even in their guidelines clearly mentioned it is supposed to be just the walking zone.
Exactly. And believe it or not, this 1.2 meters, if they have gone down all the way to 1.2 meters as allowable, that will translate to total footpath width being 1.2 meters, which it is. In a lot of places, it already is 1.2 meters, which is completely insufficient. IRC you can have one side footpath of the roadway. If the roadway is narrow, have it on one side, but have it comfortable.
Yeah. So yet, I mean, if it is 1.2, 1.5 and all these figures, the footpath itself looks so tiny that people don't walk on it.
Exactly.
A lot of these BDD chawl areas that we have walked, the footpaths over there are very tiny.
Humans don't function like vehicles. Humans don't have a headlight. Humans don't follow traffic discipline and walk in a line. We usually are walking, like we're either walking with children, or if it's a senior citizen, walking with some help. So being able to have at least 2 people walk together and still allow a third person to walk in the opposite direction is basic minimum. If you will
any city.
If you don't allow that, then people will walk on the carriageway. So it's a chicken and egg situation. You want to free up your carriageway, then you have to provide footpaths. Otherwise, people will walk on your carriageway, they will block traffic, and then you guys can keep crying. So I don't know. I feel like this conversation needs to happen with not only the engineers, but the traffic police also is a huge driver for all of these kind of things. I don't think they understand this, because it's not direct. For them, it feels like, this is taking up space. They don't understand the logic of that humans are occupying this space and their logic does not work according to your supposed engineering mind.
Yeah. Also, these footpaths in Dadar Hindu colony, we had seen. So we had measured it is very much 3 meters. The road itself might be I think 3 times the the right of way will be 3 times that, 9 meters possibly. 3 meter footpaths on both the sides.
Correct.
And when you're walking over there, it feels very comfortable. It feels like, okay, I'm meant to walk on this, and it is very nice to actually see. But when we go with our whole tape or any the yellow band that we are carrying in some of the walks, which is 3 meter long, to tell the people that this is the minimum we are asking for, pan city, including all walking frontage and multi-utility zone. Sometimes when you bring that same thing on the other street, it feels like, अरे बहुत ज़्यादा wide है.
बहुत ज़्यादा wide है. Correct.
But in Hindu colony, it feels perfectly at place.
Exactly.
It's fascinating that is when it is that wide, only then you feel like walking on the footpath. Otherwise, you just want to walk on the road because it is straight. You have a nice line of sight, walking quickly.
So I think most of our streets, have this space between the footpath and the actual space where vehicles are moving. That is very, very badly utilized.
Yeah.
And some places there are trees. Some places it is just kept as completely open rubble is lying there. It is not paved. So obviously it gets encroached by parking because there's no other use for the space. The issue is that there is intentionality is not there in planning it. They're just that this is my footpath, this is my carriageway, beach mein jo ho raha hai, not my concern, and that is where you're falling short. In fact, I know even in Mughal Lane in Mahim, they have very narrow streets, but they have wide enough footpaths, and their parking gets alternated on different sides of the road. So there is a proper regulation to ensure that on even days parking is on one side, odd days parking is on the other side, and that way the carriage also stays free. But you see the same exact footprint, same type of morphology in Bandra Khar, nothing. They have done away with footpaths. They've not reduced, they have done away with footpaths. Around the Khar Gymkhana, there is no footpaths.
Yeah. I also remember, this reminds me of a public meeting that I had attended. I think I brought this up on the Friday call, I don't remember. But basically, this was a MLA who had called a public meeting in one of their wards. I'll not name who. But people are complaining during that whole thing ki it is not walkable in that road, a certain road at a certain location. And the MLA immediately pointed to the BMC roads guy at the ward level. ये काम करते हैं, footpath हटा देते हैं completely. Let's just make it flat so that cars can park over there. People anyway don't use the footpath. So what's the point in providing the footpath? I mean, that is the level of analysis that these guys go into. And
there is a type of footpath that is like, I mean, there is a part of roadway that is like that, right? The shared street concept is that.
Then you have to provide traffic calming, which the BMC doesn't do.
No, that they don't do. But then there are people will anyways walk in the middle of the road there.
Yeah.
I think as a community we should do that. Pedestrians as a community should walk in the middle of the road. I do that very often. If there is no footpath or if the footpath is not walkable, then I walk in the middle of the road, and it doesn't matter how many people honk behind me. I do not move. Because why? Why should I move? So I mean, there's a little bit of empowerment, I think, that pedestrians also need to feel more. We are already very empowered.
Definitely, we should be taking over the streets.
This also reminds me of a conversation I had the other day when I was at a stationery shop. I was just printing something, and I met one of the police inspectors from Santa Cruz police station, and I was just telling him about walking project. So I brought up the footpath widths, and he mentioned that since we were at the stationery shop, that they put up their banners and everything right on the footpath, so pedestrians don't get space to walk. So this seems like a loophole that they don't mention the zones of the footpath. So it sort of places the blame on the the shops that they are utilizing the space, that they have the provision of the space. So it's
No, but this is a very important point, the narrative that the BMC has built of blaming the vendors.
Yeah.
So often I hear these narratives about people just complaining about how vendors have encroached our footpaths. But there are vendors in many other parts of the world. There are vendors in South Bombay. They don't encroach on walking space. Encroaching a footpath is different from encroaching walking space. If the BMC will not provide space for a certain activity, then it becomes an encroachment.
Yeah,
But
there is a baseline demand for a certain thing which needs to be catered to. Otherwise, you're going
exactly,
to have it prop up somewhere, which might be
exactly.
an undesirable location.
And if you look at all of our station areas are extremely high footfall areas where wherever there is high footfall, there will be vendors. Because, one of my colleagues at one time used to say that vendors are for pedestrians, what petrol pumps are for cars. You need the vendors. Vendors provide eyes on the street. For women, they provide a sense of safety. Vendors provide spaces for you to stop and have a glass of sugarcane juice if you feel like. So you have the energy to be able to continue walking. Vendors provide the ability to multiple activities within one trip. Imagine if we lived in a suburban neighborhood where if you lived in a house and you had to take a car trip for everywhere, you would be taking the car out to first to go and buy clothes, then go and drop your kids to school, then take a separate trip to go to office. Here, in that space between the station to your home, you can buy the stationery for your kids. You can pick up kids from wherever they are. You can do so many things in your one trip.
Yeah,
A lot of people prefer to walk from the station at least up to a point just so that they can get these things done.
and we are not even talking about the environmental efficiency of having it
Of that
designed that way.
approach.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And these are problems, I mean, which are tackled in other cities across the world. I mean, Singapore has certain kinds of hawker markets. Istanbul has bazaars which are world
Correct.
famous. And we simply have not thought of providing spaces or catering to these spaces around railway stations, which is a very high footfall area, and it is going to have a certain activity. It is also like
Absolutely. You
a,
can keep moving the vendors. You can keep sending your BMC van. They will keep coming back
yeah,
because you are not understanding the market. The
yeah,
fact that we are such a vibrant economy, Mumbai is a very vibrant economy, is because we have so much economic activity going on. You can't keep shutting it down. I mean, you will never be able to shut it down. Parking, you
yeah.
can still manage, and that they should. If you're talking about parking as encroachment, I would support it. But when we speak of vendors as encroachment, I think there's a completely missed idea. It is like, if you are working in a high flying office and somebody's telling you your office is an encroachment, you are encroaching on a real estate by going and working there. It is extremely, extremely insulting, and does not respect basic, human equality in being able to practice their economic needs. So,
And even, I mean, the whole, I think this is present in your presentation later on, as I've seen it. But the whole vendors policy and the lack of implementation of it, and I mean, there were a couple of days ago some kind of a judgment on it, but I don't exactly know where it stands. But it has been delayed for a long time,
yeah,
and also they are not even
town
counting
vending
all of the,
committees, no? Town vending
yeah,
committees are not officially
yeah.
notified it, which is also unbelievable. Like every other city has it, smaller cities have it, and we are like a
It's a
premium.
74,000 crore budget, by the way.
Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Now, this is going deeper into the policy. These are snapshots from the policy just to show you how inconsistent the width of the footpath mandate is. Here, in the first one, it says end user, it shall be minimum 1.5 meter horizontal and 2.2 meter vertical. And as a rule, the end user zone of minimum width 1.5 should be provided. Then, however, there may be restrictive and compelling cases. In such cases, end user zone of less than 1.5 meter may have to be provided as per site conditions. Then it goes on to say, no, it actually has another point of width of footpaths leading to major railway and bus stations need to be increased suitably in order to cater to the heavy end user movement, especially during peak hours.
There's no maximum set
There's,
for it.
yeah, there's no higher level minimum for this.
Yeah.
Then minimum footpath is of 1.2 meters for one directional movement of wheelchair and 1.5 for two directional movement of all end users simultaneously. So it goes, it keeps shuttling between 1.1 and 1.5. Where the effective width is constricted by, for example, existing trees or walls or bottlenecks, footpaths may reduce to 1.2 meters, but for only a short distance. What is the short distance? That is also not specified. If the constriction is on account of encroachment, electric poles, cameras, same shall be promptly removed. And minimum 1.8. Now there is 1.8 meter. So we don't know what is the minimum width. And in this diagram,
nebulous.
In this diagram that is from the IRC code, there they have copied all the widths as they were in the IRC 2012 guidelines. So here it says 1.8 meter, 0.5 meter frontage zone, and the furniture zone is not written here, but it is 1 meter. But again, they are referring to the 2012 IRC here. So we don't know whether IRC 2012 has to be followed or all these different things need to be followed.
There's also a whole kind of inconsistency. So when I talked to a journalist very recently about this whole Universal Footpath Policy, there is also a quote in the Hindustan Times about it. They mentioned that we have brought this Universal Footpath Policy and we will also follow IRC code wherever applicable. So I don't understand exactly what they are going to follow. They're basically saying two things we are going to follow. Two things.
They are saying we'll do anything. And for whatever we'll do, we have one line there in the guideline.
Use whatever is convenient.
Yeah.
So weird.
So, so this is the optimum guidance, considering the 3 zones to be provided footpath, total width of footpath in ideal circumstances and along all roads having width 90 feet and more shall be minimum 3.3 meters. On all the roads having width less than 60 feet, minimum end user of 1.5 meters shall be provided. With a 3 meter, assuming that that's a 3 meter total width, that is my calculation. Roads having width between 60 feet to 90 feet, considering user zone of the area, width of footpath shall be worked out. But assuming that that will be between 3 meters to 3.3 meters. So this they have mentioned that if there is enough width required, then 3 meters footpath will be provided. Depending on the width of the roadway, but 60 feet is still a pretty wide. 60 feet is 20 meters, 18 meters wide road. 18 meters wide would mean it would mean at least 2 lanes in each direction. That would be 7 meters, 14 meters.
Hill road, basically, I think. Hill road must be around 24 meters at sections, slightly less than the hill road in Bandra.
Correct. Correct. That would be around.
90 feet is approximately around what SV road or a LBS road in Mumbai is. So on a road that wide,
road is 90 feet for sure. So that is that should ideally have 50 meters.
This is, I mean, when you compare it to any of the avenues in New York, New York has all of their avenues are around 28 feet, 28 meters, so 90 feet basically.
90 feet, yeah.
Fifth Avenue has 5.5 meter
footpath. But in 90 feet, they have at least they have, I think, 18 feet wide footpaths on either side in avenues. Maybe it includes footpath and cycle tracks now. I'm not sure.
So but even like Fifth Avenue, it already had 5.5 meter wide footpaths, and now they are trying to extend it further to get it extended by some 45 or 55%, if I'm not wrong.
I remember reading that they were planning 10 meter wide footpaths.
Yeah. And I'm here, we are like 3.3 meters. Thoda sa de denge, 90 feet hai to.
Exactly. So they've included these 3 zones from the 2012, which is superseded by the 2012. And this is the snapshot of what the IRC 2022 proposes. That if it's they have proposals as per land use and not as per the width.
Width of the road.
So residential would need at least 4 meter total width. Neighborhood level commercial street would need 5 meter, and a city level commercial or a high street would have at least 6.5 meter wide streets. So we're talking double. SV road, according to this, would be 6 meters at least. And they have said for a 21 meter wide street with 7 meter undivided carriageway, 6.5. So this, I think they are including both sides of the footpath. No. They are including only one side.
One side.
Mm.
One side.
So 7-meter undivided carriageway means they are saying that there should basically be room only for one lane of traffic movement on either side, and everything else should be a footpath. Maybe linking road needs to have at least 6.57-meter wide footpaths.
Yeah. MG Road in South Mumbai has the road leading from Flora Fountain up to Kalakoda. We had measured the footpath. There are 7.8 meters on both sides.
Correct.
Also has 2 lanes of traffic and a tiny shoulder portion, like one parking shoulder portion lane. It feels very perfectly in place. It doesn't feel like बहुत ज़्यादा है or something like that. It's perfect.
Very, very comfortable.
Yeah.
Now this is the second issue, property entrances. They have a whole section on property entrance and how that should be dealt with. And their proposal for entryways is like this. So there are, if you see these two, I don't know whether everybody will be able to understand what these diagrams mean, but if you are looking at it from the top, this is the entry gate. Your car will come and enter like this. If you are a pedestrian, you are expected to slope down, slope up. And either the entry gate and the property is at the same level, or if the property is at a higher level, their ramp must begin from inside the gate, not from outside the gate. Okay, so they have allowed for this, but they've also allowed for this, where the ramp starts from this. They call it the alternate solution, curb ramp at entryway, not completely accessible. So this is, they're saying, is not completely accessible, but this is an absolute hazard. And a lot of our property entrances are like that. If they're allowed, they must at least, or if they exist, then they have to limit the length. If you look at these property entrances, they're like full length.
Yeah. I've had conversations with builders and an architect in the past year, where they had mentioned that they are unable to start the ramp further inside the compound because there's some policy issue which kind of counts against their FSI or something. I'm not exactly sure what he mentioned.
It must be the fire tender movement that must be getting what the fire tender movement inside the property needs to have a clear space of movement.
Okay. So the ramp might create sections where it is slightly sloping inside.
Correct. So that is why they must not be able to do it, which is a possible.
It's also because they don't leave the setback areas, right? I think.
Yeah.
It's like
if they leave setbacks, then they won't be able to consume the full FSI. That is how the FSI gets related. But there is another way that where you can start the carriageway if the footpath is wide. In all these situations, the footpath is very narrow,
tiny. I mean, with 1.2 minimum, so you can't really provide a slope at all.
Correct. So now if you were doing this, okay, this third option, which is crossed out and said that it is not completely accessible. If your footpath was twice the width, then you could have, imagine your footpath is, I don't know if my mouse is seen. Is my mouse seen?
It is.
So if the footpath was like this, then pedestrians could still continue walking here, whereas the vehicles could climb up and the gate would be behind. And here, usually people put some bollards or something. And that is how everything can get resolved. So again, footpath width is the minimum requirement. That I think would resolve everybody's problem.
And is there mostly all of these plots are high up because I think flooding is the biggest concern they have. They want to be above the usual flood level that happens during a monsoon. But is there some...
No, it's probably if they have a basement or not. Otherwise, now most people have a stilt area on the ground floor. So the flooding is not a problem. But if they have a basement that is underground and that cannot go as down and they want to reduce the cost on digging, so they'll elevate the ground floor a little bit.
Yeah.
Basement can be under that, and then that just completely exceeds the ramp requirement.
Yeah. In the
Again, that
smaller
is,
plots, it especially becomes difficult with such high ramps. I think lately with the whole mechanized underground parking and all, there are lots of these uh, buildings, and even Dadar is still better. But I've seen a lot of these places have these new ramps. Ghatkopar East is one of the places where I've seen this be a consistent problem, where the building
hmm.
is just way too high, footpath is way too narrow, and you can't slope it with because of that conditions over there.
Yeah. But those high ramps are a complete hazard to the pedestrians walking in front of them.
Yeah.
It should not be allowed as a policy also. Now, where would you include that requirement? Because they have a ramp, this thing, the angle ka requirement, but ultimately right at the entrance, you cannot have a ramp that is taking you directly to the first floor.
Yeah.
But that's like,
I think it is not even an engineering challenge. If you just have a proper gradient from the edge of the plot all the way up to the entrance, uh, it shouldn't count against your FSI or even
yeah.
the fire tender issue, I think.
And these architects obviously know what they're doing. So
Yeah.
it's not
Yep.
it's not that people are doing it because they don't have the understanding. People are doing it despite having the understanding because their priorities are somewhere else. So we just don't have an anchor or a Maibach who speaks on the behalf of pedestrians. Otherwise, okay, our favorite topic:
Oh God.
guardrails and pedestrian railings. Um, so first of all, the, the biggest issue or the weirdest issue that shows that document has not even gone through a proper round of review, like normal editorial review has not happened, is that the guardrail section is mentioned in the grating section. I was reading it and I was like, "Arey, ye to abhi to gratings ka discussion ho raha tha," and now it has moved to. So here we are at gratings. Gratings and manholes should be avoided. Gaps in grating house should not be more than 12 meters. Service chamber, all grating. Then the design of guardrails shall be neat and similar. Like what?
Wow.
What just happened here? I was very confused. And applications, end user guardrails, some like cut paste problem happened here.
Yeah.
So random.
So anyway, not a very technical observation, but still I thought it was
And also, I like how they mention, like, in the BMC policy, especially end user is constantly
end
brought
user.
up. Like, so it feels so
So
dehumanizing.
dehumanizing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
End user shall be provided with this. It's like almost like 1984.
Like it's open-ended who the end users be. It could be the two-wheelers or the pedestrian.
Yeah.
exactly.
Like
Okay.
you're reduced to a unit.
Yes, that's true.
Sims 4, Sims 5, Sims BMC.
So guardrails. I just want to know. This is just a very geeky observation that I want to share with everybody. That what is the concept of a guardrail? When you go for go karting, on the edge there are these tires, and on if you go for a very high speed highway, there are these guardrails. Like on a Mumbai Pune expressway, there are guardrails. They are intended to ensure that the cars don't, if they are getting, for some reason they skid or something, they don't fall out of the roadway onto something else. So guardrails are actually to keep vehicles safe in case of a potential crash. Pedestrian guardrails is a very, very new concept, but I prefer to call it pedestrian railings because pedestrians can basically not be guarded through this. If you, in fact, even if you Google guardrails, you will get these kind of images. You will not get these kind of images. These images come when you look for like pedestrian railing.
Yeah.
Pedestrian railings, where are they
So
needed?
there's a funny thing because in Google Photos now you can basically, like, if you're trying to find something in an album, you have to search for things. And whenever I have to post something on social media, if I put up guardrails, nothing comes up because the algorithm doesn't find it. But I have to put up fence. That is when the pedestrian railings actually comes up.
Yeah.
So even the fencing thing, it kind of carries.
Correct. It carries all the meaning that
Yeah.
we think it carries. True. So pedestrian fence or pedestrian railing is more appropriate. It is important to remember that the pedestrian railing, the most important intent of a pedestrian railing is that imagine you're driving a car here and the pedestrians keep walking in and out because pedestrians in Mumbai, everybody knows they have no discipline. So they will walk wherever they want to walk. And because of that, the cars are not able to maintain their speed. So in their head, they have this idea that this railing will keep a nice little divide barrier between the pedestrians and vehicles. So vehicles can also not get disturbed. And this, I'm sure, is a traffic police, like Rishi also pointed out during the live stream. It's definitely a traffic police pressure thing, maybe.
Yeah.
But that is what they have thought about it. But in a civilized, very, very scientific world, what are pedestrian railings meant for? They are meant for locations where there is a potential blind spot, where vehicles are not turning or they are coming down, uphill, downhill, whatever, and they are likely to not see pedestrians who are crossing or pedestrians who are walking, and they have a potential of going over a footpath, because these footpaths are also sometimes too low down and they have a potential of going and crashing over them. At that point, is a pedestrian railing provided? In a normal case, a pedestrian railing is not really provided. Obviously, if there is like a celebrity who wants to go over the footpath and run down sleeping pedestrians or encroachers, that we can say nothing about. But you could still have bollards and all that too at regular intervals to make sure that there is no such thing happening, that cars are not allowed to freely run on a footpath. Railings are not required. Railings are not required until there is an established risk of a crash or a conflict.
Yeah. And anyone can, I think, go on Google Street View across cities across the world, and railings is really it's not, you don't find them as easily. It's very difficult to actually find one. But in Mumbai, I mean, most streets have it, and it feels so obstructive to constantly walk on it.
It feels like they are trying to kill you.
Yeah.
So this is what the policy says. End user guardrails shall be considered under the following situations: hazardous locations on straight stretches. It includes locations where roads are congested and locations where vehicular movement is at fast pace. So these two things, first of all, they are not the same thing. Congested roads are never fast moving roads. They're very slow roads. Where vehicle movement is at a fast pace, at a Western Express highway, if there is a railing, I think it's a good idea. I agree with this.
Definitely.
At junctions and intersections, maybe in small stretches. But if the railing is going to be right in front of a crossing, then it is.
One of the best locations of good railing implementation, I think, is at Dadar TT. They have those old railings, steel, shiny steel. It's very short, and it basically it doesn't feel like it's trying to trap you. You're just guided to the safe short distance location where you want to actually cross.
So we were at, I think, was it Tilak Bridge or one of those east-west bridges in South Bombay yesterday? And there also there is a railing and people are nicely walking inside. It's a wide enough footpath also. Even on a bridge. So bridge is already an encaged tunnel type road. In that, if you have a railing to differentiate between pedestrian vehicle, it still is okay. But otherwise, if there is interconnectivity happening, somebody needs to cross the road and go to the shop on the other side. And there are railings blocking movement, it is extremely.
And it is also the ratio of the footpath size versus the railings, which kind of adds to that claustrophobia environment.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely.
So below this, right along this, from the other TT, if you're walking towards Nanalati Mehta flyover, the turn which takes you to the Five Gardens area or the Ria College area, Footpath over there is something around 4.5 to 5 meters. It has railings, but mentally I'm erasing those railings constantly because they're not posing kind of a challenge to walk, or they are not.
Yeah.
You don't feel claustrophobic on a footpath that wide.
Yeah.
But on a tiny footpath, it feels just constricting.
Absolutely. Agreed. So then the next is at junction intersections, schools and colleges, bus stops, railway stations. This does not make sense to me at all, but overpasses and subways, obviously. And central reserves, where there is a central reserve or median guardrails may be erected within it to deter end users from attempting a crossing. Just don't let us live. Why do you ever let us live? Attempting a crossing kya hota hai? They are bloody avoiding a vehicular trip. Otherwise, they'll sit in a rickshaw and they'll block your junction. There'll be a huge queue length there and waiting to take a U-turn. That's what we want. I don't understand. Please, whoever is crossing the street, traffic police, Mumbai traffic police, please listen. Whoever is crossing the street trying to jump through medians, they are saving your junctions. They are not lining up at the junction in a traffic jam. They are saving you from a traffic jam.
I'll also add a street view image for the video from Malad, where the road is barely like 18 meter bhi nahi hoga, 10, 15 meter max. And they have this railing median in the middle. And even according to the IRC, it says you have to have crossings in an urban area, minimum 70 meters to 150 meters max.
Exactly.
वो तो provide नहीं कर रहे हो. In addition, you are creating all of these railing stuff on the median. You're basically asking for more people to drive, or people who can't drive, like who can't afford a vehicle, to just cross haphazardly in a very dangerous manner.
Exactly. So where is it not needed? Where railings can trap women and children in dark and dangerous spots, like this situation. In this situation, this is just, you would not take this footpath. It's too dangerous. If there's any risk there, you get trapped. Where landscape verges are already there. Now there is a situation where there's a really nice landscape verge there. There are trees, there is some plantation. If all that is already there, that is enough of a buffer, no, between vehicle and pedestrians. Why do you need to add a railing and make this nice aesthetic edge into a dirty looking edge?
This is basically how Hiranandani does it. It has those hedges. That's it. You don't need railings to even control people the way you want
There's
them
a
to.
form of separation. You want separation. This is a form of separation. But this is a mug-up wala concept. The definition is correct, it's okay, but it has to use the same exact rote learning words. Nahi to hum nahi manenge.
It doesn't have to serve a purpose. It just has to follow the law.
Yeah.
What are you trying to solve exactly? Are you trying to implement the rule book, or are you trying to solve the problem of transportation in the city?
Yeah, exactly. It's not a problem solving method. And then where railings can take away space. If you look at this footpath, it literally has taken away 500, like 0.5 meter of your furniture zone has gone in just the railing.
Yeah.
So in an already narrow footpath, you are like, there is just an added use that you have put to it. And this final one is Marine Drive.
Yeah.
It is the epitome of walking infrastructure. And I think this is opposite Churchgate Station wala road there.
Oh yeah. Right. We can see Malabar Hill.
Yeah. A lot of places actually have this right in front of the crossing. So then, I don't know, maybe they're saying we are promoting active lifestyles. We want people to jump.
That intersection especially is another whole conversation, because so if you're getting out of Churchgate Station, you walk directly outside and towards all of those the Chinese place, the 5-star hotel, Ambassador, and you're over there. The only legal way to cross is actually to go over to Pizza by the Way, cross that road, and then make another crossing onto the promenade. So the direct crossing is actually not a legal crossing.
Yeah.
And this is like Marine Drive. This is the city's probably best promenade, city open space. Most
pedestrians from all over the city come to walk here.
Yeah,
So, and this is especially
and
important to over
there
here
are
because this is Churchgate
so
station.
Churchgate
This is the
station
only
is the
access point
only
from a
transit
public
point
transport location
on this
to
side. So
Marine Drive.
Marine
Yeah,
Drive tha, Coastal Road
In
डाल
the
दिया तो
city,
they can't cross over
as
there now.
heavy
yeah,
pedestrian
Chutney Road
traffic
se you
as
can't cross. You
Mumbai,
have to go all the way towards
you
the
would
Chowpatty exit.
want much
correct.
South
better
Yeah,
में towards Nariman Point there is
infrastructure,
no other railway station.
a place
So
where you want more
most of the
tourists to come
crowd
to
which
and
is
enjoy
coming to Marine Drive is
across
coming at
city.
this intersection.
mm.
And in this intersection, you are not even providing something like a Shibuya crossing ka diagonal crosswalks or something like you
Exactly.
don't have a
That should be
cycle.
intent. Yeah,
Yeah, you don't even in the heritage space, in the tourism, in the place where you want tourists. वहाँ पे भी you are not providing even 10 seconds for people. 10 so it's not even enough. It should
yeah,
have
yeah.
at least
They're
30 seconds.
constantly people are constantly running across this
Yeah,
intersection. There's not enough signal time available. The pedestrian refuge area is, I don't know, cluttered with what they have done there. They've tried to,
it's very
uh,
tall.
yeah,
Yeah.
The
And
footpath curbs are extremely tall. The curb slopes are very tall at Marine Drive, and it adds to all of those things. They also have the cop ka chowki, police ka kiosk over there.
right,
That is adding to that whole thing. Median, the median ke wahan pe also it is extremely tall and refuse space hai hi nahi basically.
correct. Yeah,
And with this practice, I mean, the footpath in the end gets so alienating for people to even access it. So they just then spill over the road, and then the blame is placed on the people that they are walking on the road. So
yeah.
it's
But you know, that's the thing. That when they blame people for saying that everybody aspires to own a car and drive, well, the only reason people aspire to go in a car or a taxi is because you have made walking this difficult.
yeah,
It
Yeah,
wasn't. Nobody otherwise aspires. At least not in Mumbai. I would say we are not a city that just wants to have a car for the heck of it. We were very happy with the trains and buses.
yeah,
until the 2000s, it was buses were running at 15 kmph. They have come down to 9 kmph. And I mean, even the Google Street View images, you can see how the traffic has increased at all intersections.
Exactly.
So
In fact,
nice
I
to
remember
see.
there was one time in 2015 or something when there was a auto rickshaw and maybe it was Uber Ola ka uh, this thing. They had a
Dashboard.
tiff,
Yeah, yeah.
and for
How
some
much
reason,
distance you can cover in from
no,
a
but they
given
had
point,
gone off
right?
the road, so they were protesting. So for a week
Okay.
or something, Uber Ola was off the road, and the buses were moving at such a smooth pace.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It was like that we don't need Uber Ola. It's like a again
I
a
remember this was back in 2017 or 18, I think. Uh,
possible. It was in
yeah,
the last decade. I remember that.
yeah. I remember I was in Dadar around that time, and the buses, the bus frequency in Dadar is amazing.
Hmm.
I thought it would cause some problem, but actually the buses were running very smoothly. I don't know if the whole union strike thing is playing out the way you want it to play.
It's the best. I'm telling you. Actually the Uber Olas, if they go on strike, because they have already cannibalized the markets of the
Yeah.
normal auto rickshaws and taxis. So now Uber Ola is the main.
Mm.
Uh,
It has something like 2.5 lakh tourist
vehicle.
vehicles registered in
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
four
I'm taking those off the road
RTOs.
for a few days. We should have
Yeah.
a Uber Ola free day, 1 day a week at least. Let's see what
people will
happens.
not know what to do.
So now another point here is that another place where railings just don't make sense is where there is a bus stop, there is a pickup drop off. So outside schools they say, but if there are pickup drop off areas, you want to at least have railings that look like this and people are able to get in and
Yeah.
out. Otherwise, people are walking for like 500 meters until they find a break in the railing. This I've seen at Mahalakshmi station. You go out and people have got it now because they want to get inside the station and they are not able to get out. So now they are walking in both directions trying to get into the station. It's completely ridiculous. First, plan your pickup drop off areas, and there you should at least allow people to go in and out. And then this is my biggest pet peeve. Pedestrian flight must be enabled. Nothing in the guideline limits the continuous length of a railing or a median. Like you said, IRC requires that at least at 70 to 150 meters, there must be a break in the median to allow for crossings. Here, there is no length limitation. And crossings, so anyways, are not covered only in this footpath guideline, but even in the guardrails thing. This is a essential resilience requirement. There can be any disaster situation. There can be a flood, there can be a terrorist attack, there can be anything where pedestrians need to escape. You cannot engage us. And if you do that, then it is a a security risk, and that needs to be understood by everybody. So at railings, I think, need to break at 30 meters, at least every 30 meters if you want to have them, but not longer than 30 meters. And medians, 80 to 100 meters, at least have median breaks.
And this guideline also doesn't cover the standardization of the railings. Like it doesn't have a height requirement ki maximum itna hi hona chahiye, like the IRC has.
They have another guideline for the design module. Maybe that covers it. I remember at one point that is what covered all the street furniture items. But the railing thing, I have seen many different types now, so I don't know which one is covered in the guideline. We'd have to.
Like the IRC clearly says ki 0.7 to 0.9 meters is the maximum height. BMC has now come up with these fiber black color ka standard railings, which are 1.2 meters high, which feel very constricting.
Yeah.
So jo bhi you are building, even that doesn't follow the IRC. I don't know what exactly.
And if it's to prevent pedestrian and vehicle conflict, ideally you don't even need more than 0.7. 0.7 meters is more than enough. That is the height up to which a car's wheel will come in any case. If that was really your concern.
And I think even for a height of a child, I think 0.7 would be enough. Above that is just not maybe required.
And since you also mentioned ki you want to prevent a conflict of vehicles and people, again coming back to the same point, ki that is not happening because you are adding guardrails. People are walking on the road. You're not solving the conflict problem at all.
Not solving the problem at all. Agreed, absolutely.
So frustrating.
Then, so crossings are not covered in the guideline at all. Somehow they only mention intermediate islands. Intermediate islands is on the median when you want to cross the road, and then if you have to wait in the middle at the signal has crossed, that's they're calling the intermediate guideline. Intermediate islands. But it does not cover the actual crossing there. And there's another point that is there in the IRC code that is a very relevant point that needs to be included in our guideline also, is that urban roads don't need junction curvature more than 4 meters. 4 meter radius is what we need at junctions for vehicles to turn. And if there are multiple lanes and the vehicles can, they can increase the length and still are able to turn. But the concept of keeping junctions compact, it's called a compact intersection or a compact junction. This is a global standard now, is so that the distance that the pedestrians have to cross reduces. If you look at junctions in Mumbai, you will see that people don't wait at the footpath. Wherever there are footpaths, they will not wait at the footpath. They will go and stand on the road so that when the signal turns green or red or whatever, they are able to immediately cross. When standing on the road, that should actually be your footpath. That should be the point of curvature, because vehicles are obviously not. It's not a highway situation. And highways where there are no pedestrian conflicts, nothing. There you have these large curves so that cars don't have to slow down while turning. But in an urban road situation, you want the cars to slow down while crossing. So you must have very, very small radius of curvatures.
That is again where like traffic police permissions will come in, because whenever we try to kind of get them to agree for this, they are immediately concerned about the traffic throughput.
Which is very weird that the traffic the junction radius has nothing to do with traffic throughput. What is happening is, why they think it is helping traffic throughput is because if the junction is wide enough, there is more space for vehicles to queue up. But
Yeah.
why it at some
You're
point,
again bottlenecking.
exactly, they are going to go and bottleneck somewhere else. So the speed at which they are emptying out is going to slow down. उससे अच्छा you keep it at a constant width where
Yeah.
they will empty out at a faster pace, and so the same number of cars will, and there is a real value in doing this experiment. They don't allow experiments also, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, there was kind of an experiment. If you remember, in 2020, Bloomberg Philanthropies brought in designers and redid that entire CST junction,
Yes.
CST ke सामने का पूरा intersection. And I remember seeing articles that corporators complained about it. This is causing traffic jams. Traffic police complained about it. And then after that, they basically kind of didn't maintain it properly. And now it is completely gone. You still see some yellow patches over there, but this curve curvature thing you can easily see happening even right now, probably. If you go to CST towards that, on DN Road, towards DN Road, where the guy is standing with the entire rope to keep people from actually standing at that curve, at that shortest distance that you mentioned. And the rationale was key, this is causing traffic jams, so we're going to remove it. But every evening, 6, 7 p.m., it
Why
is
is traffic jam a bigger concern than road safety?
Yeah, road safety and just even like pedestrian comfort in general. Like you have what, every minute you have probably 100, 200 people crossing that intersection, maybe more. And over there, you are still, there is no.
It is impeding on your ability for a pedestrian to cross a road at a comfortable pace. If it's a senior citizen who cannot cross fast, imagine the length one has to cross. Or
Yeah,
then the other option is you stand in the middle of the road where you're putting again yourself at risk for any vehicle to come and hit you.
yeah,
And accidents have happened at junctions. Most accidents happen at junctions. So why isn't that enough proof? Just I don't understand how traffic jam is a bigger issue than road safety. Again,
yeah,
you would avoid that traffic jam if you would just allow everybody to not have to take a vehicle to cross the road and to go 5 minutes distance.
And even when legal crossings are provided, the signal timers are so like it's not long enough at all. I remember
Yeah.
crossing on under SCLR at Mumbai University. 7 seconds time is given for me to cross a what, 40 meter? I don't know, 35 meter at least hai ROW of that.
Mhm.
7 seconds I have not even crossed uh, half the carriageway. Like,
Yeah. You
and
shouldn't have to cross. You should have safe spaces in every 10 meters, and that's what the global standard actually says. That no
yeah,
pedestrian should be expected to cross more than 10 meters without there being enough refuges at regular intervals.
yeah, and it's like 7 seconds. I'm crossed half the intersection. Then I have to wait. बाद में और 120 seconds for the next time. Like this is supposed to be a entire crossing situation. Like you cross the entire road in 7 seconds. I am a able-bodied person. I'm 26. I'm fast. I'm quick. I'm one of the fastest walkers in my circles. But still, I'm still crossing halfway. Like, how do you expect an old person? Wheelchair तो हम सोच भी नहीं रहे इस point.
Generally, they increase so much stress and anxiety.
At this point, yeah. I feel like, in our childhood, we are taught that how to be a good Samaritan is to help an old person cross the road. I would say be a good Samaritan by making your crossing so good that an old person can walk without support.
Yeah.
You are not being a good Samaritan, and you are teaching us that we should be good citizens and Samaritans. It's a very bad,
Convoluted, upside down.
it's extremely bad administration. So this is a picture that I have of the what is getting planned, I think, in Kandivli East near Akurli, at the Lokhandwala Foundation, the Lokhandwala group, I think, they have been having a lot of issues in crossing that junction. And they went to the BMC with a design proposal that does exactly this. It does junction compacting. It has dedicated pedestrian crossings with proper refuge space and a little bit of a central rotary to direct traffic. It basically helps if a junction has enough guidance for all users to be able to use it properly. Leaving it completely open-ended might feel like the traffic police might feel like they are in control, but it is not good for anybody. And BMC has agreed to now implement this. So let's see if it works or not. But
These are some of the roads which are very similar I mean, the intersection is wide enough to, it is comparable to the ones in Powai. Powai, may you have this nice rotary in the middle, very wide footpaths, your proper crossing situations, and it feels intuitive to cross it, to use it as a user, as a driver, as a pedestrian. Everyone is taken care of. I think I'm also hoping that this gets implemented properly and is maintained
successful.
well enough. Yeah.
And these things are not mentioned in the policy at all. For all the blame that they put on vendors, the policy says zero about how vending spaces are to be located, how must the footpath accommodate. Forget illegal vendors, but at least legal vendors, so you should be able to accommodate. Not how parking should be planned in the multi-use. All this is there in the IRC code, but not there in our footpath policy. And how bus stops to be planned, how crossings should be planned. Very important, critical aspects of pedestrian mobility. Footpath is not the only thing. All of this is a part of pedestrian mobility as well. All of these are missing. So also, one thing I have to say, it feels like the only one thing that has been included in a lot of detail is the universal aspect. So I think they've taken the harmonized universal guidelines for persons with disabilities, and they have just somehow made it look like now a footpath will be universally accessible. But without, all these other 4 things also, it will not be universally accessible. But there is so much more description given of what kind of tactile pavers should be there.
And they will eventually fail if these are not addressed.
Exactly. But basic movement ki jagah nahi hai. What are you going to do with tactile pavers?
So, even tactile pavers ka, I remember, because I think right from 2012 guidelines, they have been saying that the tactile pavers have to be a tiled version of pavers. It should not be stamped concrete. But wo stamped concrete mein hi banate hai. It has been mentioned in 3 separate documents which the BMC refers to, and they still are making, even today, if you go to any footpath being made
but
which has
it is actually more dangerous to have tactile pavers also that go and end abruptly somewhere. First achieve continuity. If you have that level of continuity, then you add this level, no? Because as usual, we are all being good Samaritans and helping a blind person to walk where they need to walk. So it's not like we are not there to help them. But there are places at which forget a blind person, an able-bodied person, like you're saying, is at risk. So first make them safe. Then when they're safe, there was this funny incident. We were doing a workshop in Shillong, and we were talking about the need for pedestrian infrastructure in Shillong, and how the kind of footpath which they were giving was not enough for wheelchairs. And they were like, there's nobody with a wheelchair here. But like, you don't see them because they cannot walk here. That doesn't mean that they're not there. So
I mean, we are not building for something and then saying it doesn't exist. You are killing their mobility, their chance to a good life, their chance to income as well. Like, I remember this research paper which said everything, like your life, your income depends on your access to public transport. This was a New York study. And basically, by not providing this last mile connectivity from the station to your home, You're restricting their ability to participate in the economy and
Absolutely.
happen.
Especially required for people to come out of poverty,
Yeah,
actually, which we have a lot of. The best way for people to come out of poverty is to give them access to opportunities. And what gives them access to opportunities is good public transport.
Definitely.
mobility, good mobility in general.
In general, yes.
Yeah,
But there is still a difference, Vedant. The access to opportunity is different from the access to amenities. Access to amenities may you need good walkability. If you want to maintain good health, you will have to walk. Otherwise, you're trapped at home, which all of our grandmothers and mothers are. I think
yeah,
everybody is complaining of the fact that they cannot walk out anymore. So we are purposely getting them to die sooner than they
yeah,
should have. And that's just say shame on our city that this is happening. And the second thing is the access to opportunity. You need people to be able to access far reaching spaces to be able to work in a dignified manner. They should
yeah.
not have the limitation that I cannot reach there. I don't have a vehicle, so I cannot reach there.
I have had my friend. So I stay in Dombivli. He stays in Dombivli, and when he's going to all of these interviews, I remember he had gone to this one interview in Jogeshwari, I think, and the employer himself directly asked him, "Will you be able to commute to this location?" And then my friend, I mean, he was like, "Maybe I can. I'm not sure." But then the employer himself said, "कि तू मत आ भाई. This is too far for you." It's it's just kind of funny.
In
There's
fact,
also
मेरा तो उल्टा होता था. Whenever I've been saying this so often. Whenever I get applications from people who come from Kalyan and Dombivli, I always say that these guys will be very hardworking. You should hire them. They're willing to make the trip. They're willing to change trains at Kurla. They're willing to change trains at Dadar. They're very hardworking people. Definitely hire them.
yeah. In the Marathi industry also there have been jokes कि you don't find a groom from the Western line. Like a Central line person will not find a bride or a groom in the Western line because back then it used to be even more before Line 1 metro. It used to be
Yeah.
even more difficult to do that. And mobility is like
It is very entrenched in our society. Mumbai society ka caste system is mobility related.
yeah,
Everywhere else it is maybe caste related. Ours is like South Bombay, Western suburbs, Central suburbs, Harbour, Papre.
I have a video I'll share with you later on. I showed it to Aishwarya yesterday.
Oh yes, yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we discussed this Universal Footpath Policy and implications on pedestrian. Do you see any positive out of this policy?
No, actually, I don't. I'm very sad about that. I was hoping for much better. I'm genuinely very disappointed because the first pedestrian first policy was at least ahead of its time. This one is a poor excuse. This
Behind of
literally
its
is a
time.
document of excuses that the engineers can give us if we go and ask them for something better. So I am extremely disappointed. And
Yeah,
I'm honestly willing to go as high as you need to express my complete dissatisfaction for how we are like so beneath the state of the practice, national state of the practice at this point that it is not even funny. Like, forget Delhi, even smaller cities are doing more for achieving better, walkability, and we are going exactly in the opposite direction. It's
yeah.
really sad.
This is where I want to caution like the viewers also because there is a lot of fuss about this Universal Footpath Policy. I have not seen a flood of these many articles about anything pedestrian related in Mumbai in a long time. And now with the whole policy, Universal Footpath Policy, 100 crore for ideal walkable roads in the city, ye wo. And this is the thing that they're propping up, the policy. And the policy actually, since we have seen it, is not really something great, which is actually like IRC was much better.
Just
Like,
adopt IRC. Just adopt
yeah,
IRC. That is better.
it's
I
way
mean,
better than that.
this would just lead them to not even look at IRC at a point. It
Yeah,
would just be the attention would just be on this policy, which is frightening, actually.
yeah, extremely frightening. And That is what is going to happen. They could just hide behind this universal footpath policy wherever convenient. And I mean, we talked about universal footpath policy, still very much a BMC centric discussion we have had.
Yeah.
We at Walking Project are trying to do the entire MMR region. I बाकी के इसमें तो there are no, I don't think Kalyan Dombivli Municipal Corporation knows any guidelines exist for footpaths or something.
If there is a need, no, I would suggest that instead of trying to rewrite the guidelines, if the IRC does phenomenally well, let us follow that as guideline. Instead,
Yeah.
what BMC needs to do, and maybe what we need to do for the MMR, is also create a contractual template similar to what was done in
Understood.
Tender Shore, but adapting whatever schedule of rates is considered in BMC. We are not against the idea of pedestrian railings entirely. If you want, we can negotiate and we can find a middle ground where pedestrian safety and comfort is not compromised, and we can get together to create a tender document that will actually create better streets. Because at the end of the day, it is not a cookie cutter thing. Designs have to be prepared, and it is essential for everybody to understand that all of these are design problems. It is and you have preempted an enforcement problem because of which you are not allowing the design also to happen, which is completely stupid. So let the design happen first and then go on to enforcement, and we'll figure it out as we come. But completely blocking everything and just relying on this one is sad.
Yeah, whenever we see like in the MMR region, especially because most municipalities in MMR don't have the kind of money BMC has, even on a per capita basis. Maybe Navi Mumbai has it, Thane to some extent, but Vasai Virar, Kalyan Dombivli, Ambernath municipal councils, any of the municipal councils barely have enough money to maintain the roads within their localities, and that is why we see MMRD actually funding road concretization, which is happening in all of these places, and also some of the major roads that are being built, like MMRD built this Kalyan Ring Road. Height of it is probably over 30 meters, maybe 35. Satellite imagery, I'll have to measure it, but it is much wider than that. It is supposed to be urban in Kalyan, at least Kalyan West. Some places are still rural, still coming up, but a lot of housing is coming up along that, and that even on a road that wide, footpaths are not wide enough. Our locality was done by funded by MMRDA, where I stay. Wide right of way, like 18 meter, 24 meter, very relatively low density compared to other places in Mumbai. We don't have footpaths at all. It's just flat road. Shorter portion is paver blocks, and right now it's not a problem because the traffic is not that high. But the problem that is coming up now is the cars are parking on the shoulder portions on both sides. You are squeezed onto the road. It feels very anxious. Like the road outside my building immediately is relatively narrow. It has these concretization has made the roads much faster than before. Shoulder is asphalt, and it feels very scary. Like they're building all of these roads which are wide, 30-meter wide, and not providing future-proof footpaths, as Rishi says. At all. Like,
no, this is a pedestrian safety issue. I think that's where it comes in. That we have the right to live a healthy life, and the right to footpaths is not. It is a constitutional right. It's a fundamental right. This needs to really be understood.
Yeah, definitely.
The road does not belong to vehicles. The road belongs to all of us.
Yeah, and it is not even an activist kind of a statement to make. Because most of us walk. Like more of us walk than not.
Absolutely. Exactly. I mean, if you're doing something like this in a place which is largely vehicular, you would still understand this is an activist stand. This is actually a user viewpoint that you are taking away our right to practice what we can.
Exist.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think we can close this now. It was a great discussion, very enjoyable.
Yes.
I think we covered a lot of topics. We can do more of these discussions in the future on some other policy document or any other topic. We can have a casual chat about
Yeah.
something that happened to us, family members while walking also. It's very fun. I mean,
Yeah.
I think this will come out really well.
Yeah, really insightful also, and I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure like so many points that we covered that I mean, I'm sure like many of the viewers might not even be aware of. So
I think viewers rarely are aware of also
Yeah.
guidelines existing, because in most of our community walks, people are like, there are guidelines. Guidelines bhi hota hai, हमको तो पता भी नहीं था. So funny thing to know.
I mean, even about the zones of the footpath is one thing that they're not aware of. I mean,
Yeah.
they many times I've heard that they think that the frontage zone is an encroachment. It's like a
Yeah.
very
I
common.
remember this. I was trying to print this walking project ka T-shirt at this shop, and the guy's mannequins got picked up by the BMC encroachment department. Now, this is Sahar Road, Andheri, and footpath is not wide enough. So he had like half of the mannequin was it barely taking half a foot. Mannequin was, and BMC just took it away, and he was so frustrated. He was venting to me कि ये ऐसे कैसे हटा के लेके गए. Like he was not being this polite, but I mean, when you don't provide,
Instead of spending all this money that they have on, harassing people, if they would just spend it on designing it correctly, I think all
and
of
you
it
can
is-
make money out of it also. I think it's
You
not,
can. Yeah. If
there's
you
a lot
really,
of money to be made making it well.
that's what I've been saying. 100 crore is peanuts. If they would have allotted like a nice 5,000 crores or something, then there would be enough for them also to make money out of it. And if they made money out of it, then maybe
They would want to
they
do
would be
more
more
of it.
invested.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think this is a great conversation. Thank you for coming. I will pre-record a short section introducing you, because I forgot to do it at the start of this. But yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you guys.
Thank
Lovely
you.
talking to you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care. Have a nice day.